This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back, everybody. When I say this, you're probably going to say, "Well, no, that's not me." But it most likely is that you're probably in survival mode at this moment. Now, that sounds kind of harsh, but it's a reality for many of us, and we're so deep into it that we don't even realize it. You know, it's about, are you thriving or surviving? We want you to be thriving, and we're going to work on that today. Is, she runs deep as a licensed mental health therapist and harnesses the power of a holistic healing in so many different ways. And it's so great to have her back with us. Kim Trickey is back on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me again.
The survival mode is real, isn't it?
It is. It is. So today, let's dive into this topic. I see it every day in my practice and even in my own healing journey.
Mm.
It's just, if you've ever said things to yourself like, why do I feel anxious when things are going well? Why does calm feel uncomfortable to me? Why do I run from healthy people and chase unavailable ones? Right?
Wow. I can relate and also even connect with others. I have one friend that deals with anxiety, and things are usually they're okay until things are quiet. And that's where it begins, at least for her.
Yeah, absolutely. But survival isn't just a mental state. It's actually a body state also. It's a nervous system strategy. Okay. It's a collection of learned responses from childhood. So when you
Mm.
grow up navigating chaos and neglect and emotional inconsistency, trauma, your body learns hypervigilance equals safety. It learns predicting danger equals survival. It learns staying small equals protection, right?
Is it that we just want to feel safe? That is the baseline of all of this, feeling safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But when you experience things like that, your system gets wired and it gets wired for things like scanning for threats always in the environment, anticipating rejection, bracing for impact, and even expecting abandonment, right? That becomes your baseline. That becomes your normal. Okay. So when true safety shows up, then all of a sudden that sense of calm and stableness, all of those things feel foreign and untrustworthy.
Hmm. Well, what you said a moment ago, feeling small to keep yourself safe. It's almost as if you're in a situation, you're in the woods running and there's, predators out there. And what do? Let me just get down underneath a tree and just, hide until it goes away. In
Yeah.
many regards, we do that in life so that we don't have to confront. Well, how do we do that? Either, just be seen a little less often, don't engage with people, don't speak your truth, don't want to, kick the hornet's nest, if you will. And again, all of that learned behaviors from our childhood.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so if that kind of chaos was your childhood normal, then calm is going to feel like unfamiliar territory, right? So your nervous system doesn't seek what's healthy, it seeks what's familiar to you. That
Mm.
people will stay in unhealthy, familiar situations instead of getting out of that and looking for something healthier.
Therein lies the challenge for all of us because rinse and repeat. We just keep doing the same thing, i.e., in survival mode. How
Yep.
would you define that? How can we look at that so maybe some of us can better understand what this survival mode thing is?
Yeah, so things like so you'll be like some of the behaviors, I guess. So you'll be drawn to like partners who recreate your childhood dynamic,
Mm.
right? They kind of have the same behaviors as your parent. You'll mistake intensity for intimacy, and you'll
Mm.
sabotage healthy relationships. You'll shut down when someone actually sees you. You'll feel bored or numb when things feel peaceful because your body's saying, wait, I don't know what this is. This feels different, and different always equals danger.
Ah, but it's so real. Um, and many of us don't want to admit it either. Do you
That's right.
find in your practice, Kim, that the majority of us don't make that connection to childhood with what's going on? We're doing what we're doing. Yeah. How many times has somebody said, I don't know what it is. There's no good people out there. Women, yeah, they'll say, there's no good men. They're all the same. I found another one. He's just like the other one. Well, there are good men out there. How you doing? But it you found that person that didn't support you because it was a connection to your childhood,
Yeah.
good or bad, it was familiar. It was safe because it was familiar.
Exactly, exactly. And people
Mm.
get stuck there. And it is hard to get out of that. A lot of times people have a hard time seeing it for themselves. They can even see that the dynamic in their family was unhealthy growing up, but they don't always equate the two and put it together and how that affects them and impacts their life and their behaviors today, right?
Mm.
So, this is why people with trauma will say, I know it's good for me, but I'm scared. I want safety, but I don't trust it. I crave love, but I run from it. And that's not self-sabotage, that's self-protection.
Yeah, you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
In terms of our evolution, um, yeah, feeling safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do we get out of survival mode?
So, well, safety, it's not just a concept, it's a felt experience that begins in early attachment. So, when you've had inconsistent caregiving, you create an attachment style of anxious attachment, right? If you have emotionally distant caregiving, you have avoidant attachment style. If you have a chaotic, unpredictable caregiver, then you have a disorganized attachment style. So you develop your attachment styles in this way. And then your adult relationships reflect that blueprint. And healthy love feels uncomfortable, right? So your inner child learned that love can leave, love overwhelms, love is conditional, love requires me to earn it, and love even hurts. And so when someone offers you gentle, steady, reliable connection, your survival system just panics. This isn't what we know and we don't trust it, right? But secure love feels foreign before it feels safe. Okay. So we have to get through the feeling of that secure, healthy attachment and love feeling foreign before we can get to it feeling safe. Okay.
Do we ever get to that, or how hard is it to get to that point where it feels comfortable? And where I'm going with that is I kind of pilot on the embrace the discomfort because that's where the breakthrough happens. And it may not be just what we're talking about, getting out of survival mode. It could be, trying a new job. I don't know if I'm qualified for that. I think I am, but they hired me. They must see something.
Right.
You know what? I'm not going to do it. Yes, do it because you're embracing the discomfort. Is it kind of the same situation here?
It is because growth always happens outside of our comfort zone, right? And so, yes, we have to step out of that and sit in the uncomfortableness a bit in order to get to the safety feeling. So, you'll start to notice that you're growing and that you're making this shift when, you're sitting in it. And even though you feel peaceful, the peace feels strange, right? But you're acknowledging that. You're not running away from it. You're not shutting it down, right? You're noticing your triggers instead of just drowning in them, right? You're uncomfortable around people who don't require you to earn their love, but you can acknowledge that you see it, you have the insight, right? You want to retreat when intimacy gets real, but you don't. You stay in that moment and you just sit in that feeling of it. You acknowledge the feeling of it. You accept the feeling of it. Does that make sense?
No, totally. And when you're working with somebody, do you often make those connections to childhood? Why somebody may be doing what they're doing or staying in that survival mode?
Yeah. Yep,
Hmm.
absolutely. You connect that right back to, sometimes you can even connect it back to a memory of a thing that happened, right? that they remember, that they had suppressed, but in that moment they can bring it forward and then we can work on healing it. So, you don't really talk your way into the feeling of safety. You have to practice your way into the feeling of safety.
All right, now we're in new territory for me because I try to visualize how you do that. How do you?
Yeah, so I have a few different techniques and tools that we can use. So, like one is a microdose of safety, right? So instead of expecting yourself to trust instantly, practice just tiny moments wherever you are. If you're in the grocery store, if you're at work, it doesn't matter where you are. You can just have these little micro moments where you can just practice. So you can take a slow, deep breath if you're feeling unsafe or you feel anxiety coming on. Do a self hug. Even doing this and tapping on the outside of your shoulders like this, there's a meridian there that helps you feel safe. Coincidentally, this is kind of the touch point when your parent picks you up and hugs you, right? And so it has a lot of somatic healing there.
Hmm.
Saying no to yourself, because oftentimes that's something that didn't feel safe,
Saying
is
what?
saying no,
Oh,
saying
okay.
no. Yeah.
Mm.
Allowing someone to care for you and allowing yourself to rest, right? These are nervous system rewiring moments. Okay. Another technique could be just a somatic grounding, where you place one hand over your heart, the other one on your stomach, and just say to yourself, I am here. This moment is safe. My body is allowed to soften,
Mm.
kinds of things.
I-
Um,
I've done these things in different forms,
yeah,
and they're wonderful. There was a time, yeah, a couple of years ago, yeah, challenging situation, and I repeated in my mind, I am not my thoughts, I am not my emotions, I am safe in this moment.
yeah,
And it kind of brought it back home. And this is going to sound cheesy, grown man's going to admit this, but there are times I'll be laying in bed and I don't have a lot of anxiety, maybe
mhm,
back in the day. But you got stuff going on in your mind. I'm just trying to go to sleep and trying to calm myself down, and it's just time to go to sleep. I'll be thinking about things. And sometimes I'll do this. I'll put my hand on my chest and I'll just, tap it, just like right there. Just like, yeah, all right. And maybe, just gently touch, rub, whatever. It's almost if it's not my hand doing it. It's like, when you were a baby and you're getting soothed, bam,
yes.
5 minutes later, I'm asleep.
That's so true. That is a grounding technique. Absolutely. That's a great technique to use to just feel safe again.
Is that
Absolutely.
a meridian too? I'm trying to remember EFT. Is there one there, or maybe it's more toward the throat? Or clavicle, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's just a little higher. Yeah, I think you're
Hmm.
right with the clavicle.
Well,
Yeah.
works for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how
Absolutely.
about this? How about this? We always say to somebody else, "How's everything going? How you been? What's going on?" Do we ever say that to ourselves? Do we even check in? How are you feeling right now? What do
Right.
you got going on? What's going through your mind? I don't believe we ever do that.
Right, right. And oftentimes we don't even pay attention to the thoughts that we're having, right? Again, we get in our head and we say a lot of really negative things to ourselves. And sometimes we dismiss that before it even like really registers with us. And so it is important to tune into our thoughts frequently.
Hmm.
Be aware of what we're saying to ourselves and be
Just check
kind to
check
ourselves.
in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, doing inner child work, saying to yourself, that your child is safe. Your inner child can be safe again. Talk to them gently. Tell them, you don't have to protect me anymore. I've got us now. We're good. We're safe right now. Just making those reminders. Surrounding yourself with people who feel like consistency and emotional clarity and honesty and that sense of calm and compassion. Like those relationships will begin repatterning themselves in your attachment system. It's really interesting as you move through the healing process.
Hmm. Are there other things that we can do to feel safe?
Breath work. Breath work is huge. Somatic breath work. Your breath is your bridge, essentially, from survival mode to presence. So invite softness into your rib cage, into your belly, into your shoulders. That safety becomes a sensation then, and not a concept.
It sounds so simple. And many of us just look at it like, come on, I breathe anyway. What's taking a deep breath going to do? It's scientifically proven, right? It works.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If we have time, I have a little guided 1 minute reflection that we could do real quick that just can help people kind of get into that sense of safety in their body.
Capital letters and in bold, please.
Okay, so let's place one hand on our heart and one on our belly, and just kind of notice the sensation of both hands rising and falling as you breathe in and out. And then repeat softly. As you inhale, repeat, I am safe. And exhale, I can receive safe love. Inhale, it's okay to soften. And exhale, it's okay to rest. I give my body permission to feel the truth of safety. And just one last breath in and one out. Helps you feel safe back in your body.
Mm. Let's dissect what's going on there. So the breath work, totally have it. There was a time back in the day where I would try breath work and I would calm down and it worked beautifully. And then I would think to myself, am I hyperventilating? And that's why I we get my head like, is that what's going on there? So we know that's
That does
impactful.
happen. Yeah, that does
Yeah.
happen, especially in the active breath work. Like this was just kind of a short 1 minute, moment. But in my practice, I do somatic breath work, and I have different like sessions of that. And some of them are an hour, some of them are an hour and a half, but they are deeply impactful and transformational because you do get into that kind of hyperventilated state, like you mentioned. It's an active breath work, and it moves all that energy around in your body, and it allows the trauma to come up and you to process through it and feel the feelings that you've been suppressing. So,
Hmm.
yes, that somatic breath work is so transformational.
So hand on the chest, hand on the belly. What's actually going on there?
That's just the feeling. That's just that somatic touch feeling that's helping you acknowledge that you're in your body.
Does it have to be where I'm going with this is are there meridians there or, could you be holding your hands together? Could you be your arms, whatever it is, just so you feel you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like touching here too would be a really good place to touch. Just, having these moments where you're acknowledging I'm in my body and I feel safe.
Does this go back to when we were babies and mom, dad held us? Is it kind of like that?
Yeah, absolutely. In the moments, in the healthy moments that we had with our parents, where our needs were being met, right? Where we were feeling loved, we were feeling safe, right? And so we're kind of reparenting ourselves in that aspect, right? Because a lot of times we didn't get that in childhood.
Wow. What else
Now
can you share?
that's why we've stayed in survival mode
Well,
because
yeah.
that was the norm, right? So, yeah, so it's amazing. So doing somatic work as well as breath work and combining the two to me is kind of the magic formula for getting out of survival mode and getting back into that sense of safety in our own bodies.
Hmm. In the final moments we hear survival mode. Anything else that we should be mindful to get out of that? We don't want to be there.
Yeah, I just doing all these different exercises. You want to basically reprogram yourself. You want to get yourself back into a sense of safety. So, doing any of the practices that I mentioned, you can also research other practices on YouTube. There's a lot of somatic exercises that you can use. I'm always open to like people utilizing those. I think they're great. So, I mean, those are fantastic.
I love what you do, and I love your clarity. And even though this can be a little woo for some, I get it, it makes sense and it's easy to do. But we get in our heads, like I said before, overthinking the breathing and all of that. But all of these things have been tested, tried, true, even research, science, um, centuries, if you will. This is what people did, when they were in those moments of survival mode. This is what they did, and it
Yep.
worked, and it still works.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
How can you support us on a virtual level with a lot of this?
Well, people can reach out to me. I have a program called iBest that is a year-long coaching program. I also offer my breath technique virtually as well as in person. So people can reach out to me, and I am happy to work with folks and help them walk through this journey together.
This is so important. And we don't realize it because we're stuck in that survival mode of just rinse and repeat every day, the same thing, which seems like it's okay because it feels safe,
Yes.
but it's not okay because you're not living, you're not truly
No.
living.
It feels familiar to folks. Like it feels familiar. And so that normalcy is there, right? But we at the same time know that it's not working for us. We know that that way of living is no longer serving us, right? And so when we are able to start healing, we have to allow ourselves a lot of time and be gentle with ourselves. So many people want that quick fix, right?
Mm.
And it just doesn't work that way. We have to sit in the feelings. Nobody wants to feel all these negative feelings, but we have to sit in them a bit in order to feel safe in our own bodies again. Like the feeling of anger isn't going to end us, right? The feeling of worry is not going to be, like the end all for us. We can sit in these feelings and learn that we can be safe even though we're feeling these feelings.
Mm. And you said normalcy. I just want to say that there's nothing abnormal about this and the feelings of being safe, survival mode. Nothing wrong with you. If you have that the realization of, oh, wait a minute, that's me. That's what I do. We were designed for that. you
It,
know?
it, it is. I mean, it's the way that we survived. We created all of these behaviors and all of these reactions in order to survive what we were experiencing in that moment the best we could in the way that we could cognitively even fathom it, right? It's hard to process through all of that as a child, right? So, as adults, we can process through it differently. And so once we get here, then we can say, yeah, that's really not working for me anymore. I don't want to live in survival mode anymore. I want to feel safe again.
Part of me looks at childhood and wow, that's a really cool thing because you're a kid. You're, yes, you have parents, you have family, but you're all alone in the world. And when things happen as a kid, even if it at the hands of your parent, maybe you just, mom, can you get, no, I'm busy now. I'm busy now. You're not being seen. So, now you have to, in your mind, do something to feel safe at that moment. So
Mm.
it's a beautiful thing. But then it's a challenging thing later in life because we're doing the same thing, but we don't even know we're doing it.
Exactly, exactly. And oftentimes, most times it becomes maladaptive, right? If we are only looking for partners that are, unattached and, not really wanting the relationship, that's not going to serve us well, right?
Mm.
If we are always putting energy into relationships with friends who are not reciprocating that energy, eventually we're going to get burnt out. So, yeah,
Mm. The beauty in this is once you go through it and realize it, it's you find yourself and
yeah,
just what you said, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but in the past 6 months, I've been weeding out relationships just that one sided, like what the blank am I doing? Like
right.
take. What? No, 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 no. I'm not. It's not like I'm severing the tie. I'm just pulling back and kind of doing my thing. And if anybody else is along for the ride, man, hey, we're going. But um, you have a sense of you when you go through this.
Yes. And you start setting boundaries, right?
Mm. Yeah, as best you can along the way. Um, what's your website, Kim?
All right. My website is happinessnowwellness.com and transcendent-journey.com.
Beautiful. I say it almost every time we get together, but it says everything. Your practice, happinessnowwellness.com. That's it. It can be just that. A little bit of work, maybe some guidance from you, and you're there. It's a journey, but on the other side, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today.
You bet. Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.